Hey everybody, how are you doing today? I want to share with you my first oil love, and that is peppermint. So this version of peppermint is in a 10 ml bottle. I got it as a promo. You might have gotten it in your kit as either a 5 ml Vitality blend or a 5 ml classic label, or you might have repurchased it with the 15 ml classic label. They're all the same on the inside. So if you are looking at peppermint in your collection and you say, well, this one says Vitality and this one has just got the green classic label on it, same oil on the outside. We just like to label, or same oil on the inside, we just like to label on the outside so that you don't really have to think or go research, is this something that I could add to my food or add to a recipe or maybe add a drop in my water. So I'm going to talk about how I use peppermint, and depending on if I'm talking about it internal or external, just know we have a Vitality label that is for labeling and speaking on all the internal, and we have a classic label that covers all of our diffusing and topical applications. So when I first started with Young Living, one of the things that I had a definite need for was digestive support. And peppermint was the one that I had in my kit, and it came up as a huge thing for digestive support. So what I started doing right away with Young Living was I would take my bottle, I would put a drop in my hand, and I would put the peppermint over my stomach every morning when I woke up, every single time I ate, and every night before I went to bed, because my digestive system had been in a situation where I was out of balance for so long that it had gotten used to existing there. It wasn't doing great, but I was functioning. So I used a lot of peppermint in the beginning just to support my digestive system until my body kind of figured out, hey, let's get everything going the way that it's supposed to be again. One of the things that I noticed with the peppermint was not only did it help with the way that my digestive system started to work, but I also started, because it's cooling, I started to feel less of like the distress that I was feeling in my stomach area, where my stomach would get really hot. I couldn't wear a seatbelt. If I wore a seatbelt when I was driving, it would push stomach acid up into my throat, and then my entire esophagus would be on fire, which the reason you're wearing a seatbelt is for safety. And if you can't wear a seatbelt when you're driving because it's unsafe, how do you explain that to a police officer? So I really wanted to find a solution, and what I had been given through Western medicine wasn't actually providing me with anything that was working. So when I could wear a seatbelt for more than a 10-minute drive and not be in excruciating pain, I was like, this is working. Like, I knew right away that it was working, not just for the way that I was starting to notice the changes in my body, but for the fact that I wasn't dealing with, I was just starting to knock off things on my list that I just dealt with because I was so used to it. So then I really started to go to town with peppermint, and this is why I say it was my first love. In the summer, sometimes it gets really, really hot. Like, it's a warm day today. So I'm outside, I'm sitting in the sun, and I might feel a little bit warmer than I want to be. So I can take a drop of peppermint and I can put it on the back of my neck here. And then as the breeze is coming through, it's just going to catch that peppermint, and it's just going to have that like cooling feeling that you would get from the peppermint, as if I put like an ice pack on the back of my neck, but not quite as severe or as sharp. So peppermint is really great for just helping your body to regulate your temperature the way that it should. You can add a drop of the Peppermint Vitality into a water bottle and just keep you cool as you're working out, as you're spending the day in the sun, as you're out on the lake, as you're doing a lot of things outdoors, just to help your body just maintain that nice, cool temperature. Another great thing about putting peppermint on the back of your neck is it's really, really invigorating. It'll wake you up. And when I started using peppermint, I was a new mom. I wasn't sleeping all the time through the night because I had a small child who would wake me up occasionally. And I would wake up some mornings going, I don't remember sleeping last night. I clearly remember probably every hour of last night. And coffee sometimes just doesn't cut it in getting you through the day. So one of the things that I really like about peppermint is you can put a couple drops on the back of your neck. And because of how close it is to your brainstem, it just seems to wake you up. And I will find that when I really, really, really need more than coffee, a couple drops of peppermint on the back of my neck will give me the alertness that I want for the day, so that I'm able to stay awake and not have to just pound caffeine all day. And the nice thing with taking peppermint on the back of your neck instead of drinking like an energy drink is then I don't have to come down from it later, and I'm not dragging later. I feel just kind of how you feel at the end of the day when you skipped a night of sleep. You're a little tired. I can also, because we also spent a couple years in an apartment that didn't have a great air conditioning system. I've woken up in the middle of the night feeling overheated just from the summer, and it's too humid and it's too hot for the air conditioner to keep up with it. I can put a couple drops of peppermint on the back of my neck, and even though I'm using something that would normally keep me awake, if it's nighttime, if I'm needing to go to sleep, I can still sleep through the night, but I'm a lot cooler while I'm doing it because of the benefit of peppermint. Those are kind of the things that I use peppermint for. It's great for your muscles. It's great used in the raindrop because it drives all of those oils deeper into the tissue. So peppermint is a great driver. If you think about, the principle of oil and water don't mix, that's why you can put oils on and then get into the shower and the water just drives it deeper into the tissues. Peppermint kind of does that on its own without the use of water. So if you really, really want to drive something deeper into the tissues, put your oils on, put a little bit of peppermint on, and then put water on top of it. And you are going to drive the oils very, very deep into the tissues. So peppermint is great for also opening up the respiratory system. But if you are a small child and you are not quite ready for how quickly peppermint flashes off, and it's a oil that you're going to have an experience with, it's recommended to use peppermint oil from the waist down on children under 6, because if you've ever seen a kid jump into a pool and all of a sudden something's really, really cold and they just start going, oh, I can't breathe. Peppermint can make a lot of kids feel like that just because of how quickly it just gives that cooling and it flashes off, and there's some fumes from it, and they are a little prone to spazzing out, not being like an adult would be, oh, that's really sharp. Oh, that's really, strong. And then just letting it kind of cool off a little bit, they'll freak out. And to avoid that, I would just recommend on small kids, use peppermint from the waist down. The feet is a great place for it. So if you want to support their respiratory system with peppermint, put peppermint underneath the toes on the feet, and it's far enough away from their face. Peppermint is also one that I would recommend do not get near your eyes. If you put it on your sinuses, your eyes are going to water because it does off gas very, very quickly, and it'll make your eyes kind of sting and water a little bit. But it does help with the respiratory system. Just use it maybe with some caution with how you're using it. So that's how I like to use peppermint. Bonnie, Kara, how do you guys like to use it?
So peppermint is it's kind of funny that it's one of your first loves, because of course I got peppermint immediately, but for me it was just like it's okay, And what I used it for mostly was helping people when they had throbbing heads. I have kind of this routine. It's like, put a little dab of peppermint in your hand, inhale deeply, then put peppermint, being careful about not getting like just a little dab on the side of your head, and then those 2 knots on the back of your head. And then I usually add add in either Valor or Deep Relief or one of the rollers, Stress Away, something like that. And usually by that time, their head has quit throbbing. And I help people, so many people, over and over again with that. But like I said, I'm a person that I don't get a lot of that. If I do wake up with kind of a slight, tenderness in my head or like an ache in my head, I will, that's kind of my procedure with peppermint. But the thing that woke me up to peppermint was I'd been doing oils, maybe, I want to say a good 3, maybe even 4 years. And one of my diamonds, Sherry LaMarche, visited. And I asked her, I said, if you could say something to, yourself at the very beginning again, like with everything you know now, and you're going back to who you were at the very beginning, what would you say to yourself? What would be the thing that you would say to a new person getting started with oils? And she thought for a minute. She's very thoughtful, and she's very knowledgeable about oils. And she thought for a minute, and she said to me, I would say I would appreciate and use peppermint more. And I'm thinking of all the wisdom from this person, and she's saying, use peppermint more? Like, that just blew my brain. And I was like, okay, clearly I don't understand peppermint very well. I mean, yes, I've been using it, helping a lot of people. I haven't personally used it very much. So I started paying attention to peppermint a lot more after that, and about how people were using it, and, just all the digestive properties. I mean, at that time we would rub it on horses' bellies, if they were starting to colic a little bit. Digising peppermint is great for that. But I started paying a lot more attention to the things that Sarah talked about, how it drove things in. Like if you wanted things, oils more driven into your system, how great peppermint was for that. All of the different things, the great anti-inflammatory properties of peppermint, how it could be used internally, how it could use topically. I started paying a lot more attention. And one thing that Sarah brought up that I think is really interesting is the whole idea of, we think of peppermint as being an oil that and it does wake you up and kind of stimulate your brain to be thinking more clearly, and it does. But there are some people, and I noticed this first with horses, actually, because I have a horse that we were just doing a class on, and somebody was just applying, and they were just like letting the horses kind of choose the oils. And she put peppermint on my horse, and he stood there and yawned and yawned and yawned. And I'm thinking, I wouldn't have thought of peppermint is calming some and having tension. What it was is tension releasing from my horse, calming down. And there are certain personality types that, like, if you think about, the oils go in and do what we need them to do in our bodies. And yes, it normally is one that wakes you up, stimulates your mind and all of that. But in some cases, what we need is our minds racing, and it just needs a calming effect. And peppermint can go in and do that too. So don't just get stuck on these ideas about what the oils can do, because they literally go in and work where they need to in your body, how they need to work. And don't be putting peppermint in a box like of what you think it could do, because it truly is an amazing oil. And so I thank Sherry LaMarche for that. I will never forget that, because I was just like, what? Peppermint? Like, I was all into all of these other things, and it's like, she's going back to peppermint? So I had to re-examine peppermint for myself at that point in my oily journey and see all the amazing things about peppermint.
I'll add in, my gosh, this is such great like information from both of you guys. A few things that I will add in with the digestive support. If any of your kids ever get the gassy tummies, I found that by just taking one of those fitments and putting it on top of it so it becomes a roller, I could swipe it right up the center of the stomach and they would kind of release the gas within a couple of moments and it'd be like, oh, okay, that was it and it's done. So like that is a great one if anyone has to add into the upset tummies. The motion, so if anyone ever gets like occasional vertigo or motion sickness, I would just put the peppermint in your hand and literally just breathe it because it is super helpful for that. Like, especially like for me, if I ride in the back of the car, I'll get that way. Or like sometimes I've been in like a taxi cab and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna like, you know, just I'm gonna lose it. And so like I literally will just smell and do that. So that is a good one. Peppermint, I love, like I feel relief with peppermint. And I think like a lot of people get with the head discomfort in here, something that I've learned to do besides just rolling it on my temples is getting it on my fingers and literally rubbing it in my head. And it gives that really invigorating, like, oh my gosh, a calming thing. So don't be afraid to like push it back farther in your head on that. And then one thing I want to add in is because I love to bake, using this in baking. So anything that you would use the peppermint extract, if you look, most of the extract is alcohol. You're not getting that peppermint flavor. So brownies, you guys, like if you need a quick, like I love making everything homemade, but if you need something like really quick and bring it somewhere, you can literally get a box of brownies. You can take two, like sometimes if you mix brownie brands, that's kind of a secret, take two different brownie box brands, so whether it's Duncan Hines and Betty Crocker, mix the two together, and then if you put in about 8 drops, because if you're doing a 9x13, we use 8-9 drops of peppermint, and it just gives an amazing peppermint flavor that is kind of like a bakery flavor. You can certainly put it in with the frosting if you don't want to put it in the brownie, so you could do a chocolate frosting. Usually, like, you know, with your citrus oils, you kind of take 8-9 drops for every teaspoon. Peppermint is a little stronger, so I would back off a little bit on it. So if you need a teaspoon of extract, you're probably going to go more of the 5 to 8 drop realm. You can use this in, you know, sometimes beverages that is good to put in. Now, when you have a hot cocoa, we generally say take a toothpick and put the toothpick in and then swirl it because peppermint is going to be stronger. And then, of course, there's a million diffuser recipes. I love using it in the diffuser. Sometimes when someone brand new is coming over, they've never used oils before, my probably all-time favorite is going to be about like 10 drops of orange and 5 drops of peppermint. And so that's what I will put in the diffuser, and like almost like about, is this a unique smell or anyone? People just like the smell of that, especially in summertime. You know, I'll use the citrus fresh sometimes to swap out the orange, but those are just a great combo, and helping kids study. So if kids need focus with studying, putting those in your diffuser will help with the studying too. That's the only things I would add in.